and welcome to Catholic Answers Live on this Friday afternoon. Maybe if you're on the other side of the date line, it's a Saturday morning. Wherever you are, whenever you are, we're happy you're here. Thanks for taking the time with us. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. And on Fridays, sometimes we try to have a little bit of fun, do something a little bit unusual with the thought in mind that somebody out there is stuck in traffic trying to get home on a Friday afternoon. And this would probably be a good time to be maybe a little more chipper and fun than usual. And to help us do that, Joe Heschmeyer is our guest. Joe Heschmeyer, of course, apologist here at Catholic Answers and the author of a whole bunch of great books, including The Early Church Was the Catholic Church. Also, I must say this every time he's on now, the proprietor of a wonderful podcast called Shameless Popery, which you can find at shamelessjoe.com. Joe Heschmeyer, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Is that really you?
I understand why you're saying that. It is me in a way. You know, this is not a pipe, whatever that French painting by René Magritte.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, the famous painting of a pipe, and underneath in French it says, "This is not a pipe."
Yeah.
It's not a pipe. It's a painting of a pipe. Well, in the same way, this is like a Skype image of me and the sound of my voice.
Right. That's right. And we're living in a world where illusion and reality mix very, very easily. And you know, you can, even when you watch a movie, do you do the thing where you watch one of these movies with CGI effects where you're like trying to figure out which part is real and which part's CGI? It's probably CGI right there.
Yeah, actually, I was watching a clip of Jurassic Park with my wife recently. She said, "I really miss Jurassic Park," which is
I am
think
so
I speak
with
for
her.
all husbands when I say like exactly what you want to hear from your wife. Like on a top 10 list of love languages, like Jurassic Park has got to be on there. And so
Jurassic Park is my love language.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm a mature adult. What are you talking about? And so that's the first, by the way, that's the first PG-13 movie I ever saw. I saw it in theaters with my uncle.
Wow.
And he was wealthy, and I knew this because he let me get Junior Mints.
Oh.
And we were never allowed candy at the theater.
No, of course not, because it's I don't know.
Like a gallon of California gas.
Do the people inside the theater know about the economy outside the theater? Like, do they know that
it's
that
like
at
airports and
7-Eleven
amusement parks? It's just like a different country you walk into.
Right.
That's kind of a totalitarian regime with a state-run economy, and prices are crazy. So, you know, I got Junior Mints, and the movie was so good that at the end of it, I had a fistful of Junior Mint just squeezed between my fingers because I'd been clutching them with both hands.
Oh, that's great.
So I feel like that's a good sign. Anyway, all of that was a very long way around of saying.
Oh, this is the best. He just froze. It illustrates our point.
It's not CGI.
You just illustrated our point perfectly, Joe, because you completely froze and we didn't hear a thing you said. So, like in the real world,
good.
if someone froze, that would be the weirdest thing that ever happened. You'd think you were in a Twilight Zone episode, but we're used to it now. We just accept it. But so what were you saying about CGI? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, my wife was saying the CGI in this movie is incredible. And I had to be like, no, this is not CGI. This is like animatronics. They built giant replica dinosaurs that they could move around. And like a huge portion of the budget is just spent on building life-size dinosaurs, which is, again, amazing. But all that's to say, CGI in comparison to that, when you compare that to like the movies in the 90s and 2000s that came even like 15 years after Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
they hold up way worse. You know, the Lord of the Rings has a couple really bad scenes where it's very obviously CGI and it's very just low quality.
Well, what we're going to talk about today is artificial intelligence and the faith, and that's what we're going to do for the 2 hours. So that's our topic for today, artificial intelligence and the faith. And part of it is that one of the things that technology does, Joe, is it changes the user of the technology. And this is one of those things where, like, if you watch a 1950s movie where they go to Mars on a ship, it's all 1950s people with 1950s attitudes going to Mars. And so, like, they're carrying pistols. They went to Mars with pistols. You don't see that now. So
Yes.
What I'm saying is, like, the people in the 1950s think we're going to develop this technology, and then people like us will go out to Mars. But what they don't think is we're going to develop this technology, and there will never be people like us again because the technology will change people.
Yeah, this is something that's really kind of under-remarked upon. I've been rereading some Marshall McLuhan. He's the guy who famously coined the phrase "the medium is the message."
Yeah.
And he distinguished between what he called hot and cool media. Hot would be like high definition, and it just is like it draws you in. And cool is something that requires your engagement, where you have to be a little more deliberative about it. And so that switch creates a different type of person. Do you just plug in and tune out? Or is it something like reading where you're really much more consciously engaged? Now, that's obviously the example of communication, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. But there's a sense in which all technology does this. There's interesting arguments about the connection between the creation of the washing machine and dishwasher and second wave feminism. That you get people like Betty Friedan, who are these like upper middle class and upper class women who suddenly have nothing to do around the house because automation has made what would have been a day's work a 1 hour process. And so they start saying, this is terrible. This is boring. I'm just sitting around by myself all day in these suburbs. Well, so it's a number of different kind of technological things that come together. All that's to say, like, technology is not nearly as neutral as it seems. One last, I know I'm nerding out. I know I just nerded out about CGI. Now I'm nerding out about like technology history. All of this is loosely connected to AI and Catholicism, I think.
Well,
but
go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't realize you were.
Well, no, I was just going to say the presence of a printing press in a city in Europe in 1500 was a really strong predictor of that city becoming Protestant. That places where you had mass printed Bibles, where everyone could read the Bible in their home apart from the church, suddenly approached Christianity in a different way than it had ever been approached before in history. Like when you think about the first century, people are not walking around with, mass printed Bibles. They don't have a personal Bible. When the Bible is read, it's read in church, and it's read communally in the synagogue or in the church. And then it's accompanied by preaching and someone explaining the scriptures. When you're reading the Bible in your house, there's no one there to do that for you. And so you're left to your own interpretation, your own devices. So this thing that, and don't get me wrong, I love that you can have, I've got a bunch of Bibles behind me, but nevertheless, these things are never neutral. There's always these unintended kind of side effects.
No, and it transforms our understanding of the written word as well, so that we believe, like, people don't even notice this, but like a written constitution is, we treat it like it's something absolutely sacred. Well, why do we? The ancient Romans never had a written constitution. The ancient Greeks didn't have it. They had democracies. They had republics. They didn't have a written constitution. Well, our relationship with the printed word changed when you could print things and give them out to everybody. And so the whole there's no possibility of modern government without the printing press. So the printing press utterly changes the nature of everything for us, and that's what I think about AI. And what occasioned this, Joe, was Zach, the wonderful Zach here, who's very cutting edge. He went to this Chat GPT. What is it? GPT? GTP?
Yes.
GPT. All right.
GPT.
So it's this set of magical instruments, also called computers, that can mimic what human beings do in this incredible way. And so we did he brought us this little script of, he asked this AI word generator to mimic Cy and Joe having banter back and forth. And then so it goes on the internet, it finds all these transcripts, I guess, of what we've done, and it makes up a show. And as Joe pointed out so graciously several times, the AI figured out that I was a jerk. It made me say a lot of really jerky things. So that made me reflect on my life a little bit after that, Joe. But we also thought, let's do a whole show with Joe where we talk about AI. We'll do some examples. We're going to have some fun. We're going to play some AI games with you. We've invented a game called Is It AI or Is It an Apologist, where we took some of our apologists' answers in the back of the magazine, and then we asked the AI the exact same question, and then we're going to read both of them to you. And then you got to tell us, is that the AI or is that the apologist? We also
it's like a Turing test for Catholic answers.
Right, exactly.
Like,
and then,
this isn't fair for Jimmy because he's already kind of a robot. Like, he's got like such an encyclopedic knowledge.
Yeah, well, you know what?
Like, no human could know that. And then it's just like, oh, you did.
Right. That's the thing is, the thing about Jimmy, and I think he's public about this now, is that he is a time traveling cyborg from the future. He's not an actual human being. So, and I think he's public about that now. I think that's
right. He somehow predicts all of the games that all the Super Bowls and World Series.
Yeah, right.
Really remarkable.
Yeah. He's got the almanac in his back pocket, like the kid in Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
All right. So we also asked it some controversial questions to see what it would say, and I want to discuss that with you because it's important, because I think a lot of people will ask it these kinds of questions, moral questions, for example, or spiritual questions, and we noticed some weird little habits, and we want to see if you notice them, Joe. But we also want to open the discussion up in a wider way to talk about the moral implications of artificial intelligence in all kinds of things, like in warfare, in medicine, certainly in media, where the deep fakes are coming. They're not very good yet. I feel like I can still tell the difference between a deep fake of Joe Biden and the real Joe Biden. But pretty soon, the deep fake might be more convincing than the real Joe Biden. You look at the real Joe Biden and go, that can't be real. And I'm not picking on Joe Biden. I'm just because he's the president, But yeah, those real stuff will start to pale by comparison to the AI. Maybe, I don't know. We'll talk about all of that. We'll play those games with Joe. We'll see what the AI says about moral and spiritual questions. All of that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catch Catholic Answers Live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
The most original Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Keck on Mother Angelica Answering the Call. Father Joseph Mary and I mind decades of phone calls answered by Mother Angelica. Join us Sunday for a half hour of teaching, advice, laughter, and plenty of prayers from the one and only Mother Angelica.
Mother Angelica Answering the Call, Sunday afternoon, 2 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live, having a little bit of a fun Friday, a little bit of a relaxed, easygoing Friday, talking about artificial intelligence with our friend Joe Heschmeyer. And it has legal implications, it has philosophical implications, it has religious implications. And Joe's a lawyer. He trained to be a priest. He's an acclaimed podcaster and apologist. So we thought, well, talk to Joe about all these things. You are very welcome here. We're glad you're here. And we're going to have some fun with the AI, but also get into some serious stuff about the AI. So when Zach explained to me that I could ask the Chat GPT anything I wanted and that it would make a sincere effort to give me an answer, of course, the first question I asked was the following, Joe. Okay, did you have any idea what the very first question I decided to ask AI was?
Who is the greatest host of Catholic Answers Live?
No, I don't want it to say Patrick Coffin, period. I don't need that in my life. No, I asked it this, Joe. Which would be better for a Catholic to have? A book about Jesus or a book about Peter?
Very well played.
Yeah.
Very well played. Anyone who may be new to the show and just thinks Cy is bashing Catholics, he is, but specifically Catholics who call into the show. He's bashing the very people upon whom the success of the show depends.
I am not. It's just a thing that I ask people. Would you like a book about Jesus or would you like a book about Peter? And they almost always choose the book about Peter. And I think it's because they know Joe Heschmeyer wrote the book about Peter and I wrote the book about Jesus that we give away. I mean, I didn't write the only book about Jesus. I'm not claiming that. But the ones that we give away.
And, I think it's more like if you ask people, do you want burgers or Thai food? They're like, I haven't had Thai food in a while. Like Jesus is like, yeah, you've read a lot of books about Jesus, but how many books have you read about Peter? So maybe I'm taking too high of a view of our audience that they're just
No, they know the difference between you and me, and they think I assign a higher value to a book by Joe Heschmeyer than I do to a book by Cy Kellett. They're completely wrong about that. If they would read these two books, they would realize what a fatal error they've made. But
exactly.
Do you want to hear what the AI said or no?
Yes, please.
Both
Do we need to send it a book? I don't even know how to send it a book.
No, it's not. The AI is not winning a copy.
Oh, good.
By the way, we asked it to review our books. My book about Jesus and your book about Peter, but it couldn't because it can't do anything after 2020, I think. It just has a cutoff so it doesn't.
Well, that's as far as hindsight goes.
Is that what?
Hindsight is 2020.
Oh my Lord! Oh my! I can't believe it.
You just walked right into it.
Why did we invite Joe on? Here's what the AI thought: a book about Jesus and a book about Peter can be beneficial for a Catholic to have, as they both provide valuable insight into the foundations of the Catholic faith. What the?
That's a grandma answer. That's like, I don't need an we know you do, grandma.
I feel like I could ask the Magic 8 Ball the question and it would give me the same answer. Like, that's not good. This is not a good advertisement for artificial intelligence.
No. Well, sometimes when I ask my wife, like, where do you want to go to dinner? She'll be like, that place sounds good, and so does that one. And it's like, yeah.
Where do you want to go to dinner? Right.
Exactly.
No, but I
feel like I might be married to AI.
No, this is a marriage trick, because if you then go, okay, I want to go to A, then she will say, I was kind of thinking about B. So this is this is called the unwinnable argument. So yeah, you want to go to A or B? Oh, they both sound good to me. Let's go to A. I don't know. I was thinking about B. Okay. I'm glad I married you. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes.
Another trick I heard for this is to just ask, hey, guess where we're going to go to dinner? I'm going to take you on. It's going to be a surprise. And wherever she says, just be like, you got it.
Whoa!
And that's where you're going.
Then she goes, I'm kind of tired of that place. Oh.
Because then it's just like, if she guessed somewhere she wasn't going to like, that's kind of on her. Like, why would you assume I was going to take you to a bad place? Now you're going to a bad place.
Kind of on you. Wow, Joe, you're getting good at marriage. If you think of the goal of marriage to make your spouse miserable, you're winning, Joe.
My wife calls it martyrdom on an installment plan. So
oh my gosh, she's so much funnier than you. She would never make that 2020
totally
joke. All right, here's a serious thing. I want you to. This one I really want to share with you because, well, you'll see why I asked the AI this, and I really want to get your take on the AI's answer to this. It's not a moral question. It's not a spiritual question. It's a very simple question of fact that I asked the AI, but it gave me a long answer, and in my view, it gave me an answer longer than it needed to. And I don't think this has anything to do with AI. I think it has to do with the people who programmed the AI. But I asked the AI.
Can I guess what the question is going to involve?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it going to involve how many genders there are, or something related to that?
Oh, we didn't do that one. No.
Oh, I was imagining it gave you a
We should invite you to the
answer.
meetings, man. You come up with these good things. Why? It's just that we waste so much time when you're in the meetings. All right.
In fairness, even when I'm not in the meetings.
Well, I mean, it is a meeting. Okay, so here's what I asked it. When does the life of a mammal begin?
Oh, I see.
Do you see what I was doing?
That's oh, yeah.
I didn't ask it when does human life begin. Mm-hmm. But humans are mammals. So de facto, it would give me and this is just a question of fact, but it's amazing to me how good of a tap dancer the artificial intelligence is on this basic question of fact, not a moral question, not a spiritual question. When does the life of a mammal begin? All right. The question of when life begins for a mammal is a complex and multifaceted one. No, it isn't.
Not really.
It is not. No, nobody. This is not a hard question, is it, Joe?
No, the word conception means beginning. So if you want to know, is the beginning at the beginning or is the beginning later?
Yeah.
I feel like you've already answered your own question there, my friend.
Right. So now, of course, conception is not the word a biologist would use. They would use the term fertilization, but it's the same
But that
moment.
was a shift, and that shift was, I suspect, largely motivated
Oh,
by
yeah.
trying to avoid answering that question.
Right.
Because they used to call that conception.
Sure, exactly. But that's a point well made, Joe. But even if you say fertilization, it's the same moment, two different words.
Yes.
Everybody knows how the life of a mammal begins. But the AI says the question of when life begins for a mammal is a complex and multifaceted one. And different people and organizations may have different perspectives on this issue.
Wow. Yeah, some people say life begins at 40.
You know, I'm going to tell you something, Joe. Different people and organizations have various views on racism. They have various views on sexism.
Yes.
They have views
Whether
on murder.
the world is
like,
round.
Well, the mafia
Yes.
doesn't agree with everyone else about murder, so this is a complex and subtle. No, the mafia doesn't get a say in this. So
Yeah, it's a very strange, to even include that bit into a factual question is a sign that something has gone wrong.
something's terribly
Because if I want to
wrong.
know what is the objective answer to, is 2 + 3 5? And you're like, well, different people have different views. I don't care. Is
Yeah.
2 + 3 5? You
Yeah,
know, like
the
that's
question-
That's
that's
what
right.
I'm asking you.
A
I don't
question-
ask you what did people say about it.
And all of this padding, doesn't it seem to you that someone has programmed it to give us all this padding? So that we don't.
Well, I think it might be worse than that. So it's a language learning machine.
Okay.
Meaning that it responds, it's constantly learning how people speak by observing it. And so a lot of the training, some of it is like back end, they're programming it to do certain things. And some of it is just copying the way people talk. And so if everyone is evasive about answers like when does life begin, it learns how to be evasive about answers like when does life begin.
So it's learning from us not to just give straight answers.
Yeah, so a really clear example of this, Microsoft released one of the earlier forms of this AI, and they had it just open source. People could interact with it as they wanted to, and a bunch of teenage boys with way too much time on their hand just made it a horrible, insufferable AI that was extremely racist and vulgar, and they purposely corrupted the morals of this AI, so to speak. But it had no idea what it was saying. It doesn't have any actual intelligence.
Right.
And so it's just spitting out things that it's heard. It's like a little kid repeating a word. They don't know what the word means.
So this is not
but if
just this is not a sign of manipulation by the programmers. You think this is a sign of deep sickness
right.
in our culture.
Exactly. I don't know which is. I guess I do know which is worse, but I'm not sure they're putting the thumb on the scale as much as it's just, it really is that bad right now.
All right. So after all that, then the AI says, from a biological point of view, the life of a mammal begins at fertilization when an egg is fertilized by a sperm and a new organism called a zygote is formed. The zygote contains
That's all you need to say.
all the genetic information needed for the development of a new individual, and it will divide and differentiate to form all the cells and tissues of the future organism.
Well, the problem there is future organism. You already have it.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Definitionally,
Yeah.
already have an organism.
Well,
I mean, in the same way, like you're a future person.
Right, I am a
You're
future
already a
per-
person. You're going to be a future a person in the future as well.
Yeah, so there's a little tap dancing there. Okay, so what I'm reading here is that it gave us a paragraph of padding to try to say, this is very complex. Then it gave us the answer, and now it goes back for two more paragraphs, one long paragraph, one short paragraph of padding. So now it goes, so all we asked it was, when does the life of a mammal begin? And now it says, from a legal and ethical point of view, the beginning of life can be defined differently depending on the context and purpose of the discussion. Meaning, if you want to kill it, we could change the terms of this debate. I'm sorry, I'm translating for the AI. For example.
Well, no, it's totally true. It also, like, by the way, you would never say that about animals.
No.
That question about the legal and ethical debate, you wouldn't say, well, I mean, if you want to say you're vegetarian and still want to eat meat, we'll just define the life as like after the cow turns 2, and then just eat veal and you'll be fine.
Right. Or you can't go out here in California, you can't go out and sledgehammer the eggs of a California condor. You're breaking the Endangered Species Act if you do that. You go to prison. So All right. So then it goes on to say, for example, in the context of abortion, I didn't ask it about abortion.
Yeah.
I asked, when does the life of a mammal begin?
It saw through.
Yeah.
Because you can't just answer biological questions anymore. If you say, genetically, how many sexes are there? Well, I don't want to offend anyone, so we'll just give you the wrong answer. if you say,
right.
This is the real war on science. It's not the one people talk about where people say maybe there should be limits on what we do in the name of science. The real war on science is just lying about science.
Yeah.
And saying these scientifically true things are disputed or false when they're not. I mean, sure, they're disputed in the same way you could dispute whether the Earth is round, but they're not in any real question.
No, they're not. They're certainly not in question. And you answer a bunch of other questions rather than the basic scientific question, so you can avoid the implications. There's more what the AI had to say on when does the life of a mammal begin. We'll do that right after this. Catholic Answers Live is 25 years old. That's a quarter century helping people come into deeper communion with the Catholic faith. As we move into our second quarter century, please help us reach thousands more by becoming a Society 315 monthly donor. Right now, when you join Society 315 at a monthly giving level of $25 or more, we've added some extra perks to the other great benefits we already offer members. Go to givecatholic.com and choose the monthly option to start your donation.
As a child, the great theologian Thomas Aquinas asked, "What is God?" Best-selling author Kevin Vost's new book follows the mature thought of Aquinas in answering that question. In clear and approachable fashion, What is God examines God's attributes and considers questions about him that have vexed mankind for centuries. Order your copy of What is God today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
The recent decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade was a monumental victory for the pro-life movement. But the fight is far from over. With our new booklet, Why We're Pro-Life, we have produced the perfect tool to prepare you to have peaceful and convincing conversations to shed light on the truth about human life from conception to natural death. Catholic Answers is printing millions of copies of this booklet, and we plan simply to give them away. You can help us in two ways. First, by generously supporting this project. 25 cents prints one book. $2,500 prints 10,000, and so on. Second, by helping us distribute the booklet through your parish, your school, or the pro-life ministry you work with. Catholic Answers is going to blanket the country with why we're pro-life, but only if you step up and help us. Thank you so much. For more information, visit whyweareprolife.com. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Joe Heschmeyer, apologist extraordinaire. We're not giving out the phone number today because we're just having a little bit of a fun Friday conversation with Joe. We'll probably bring in some other people on this conversation at some point during the program. But it really has been all the rage in the news. The advances that artificial intelligence have been making, including deep fakes and things like that, that use CGI to make people say things they didn't say or do things that they didn't do. But we're talking about just the verbal side of it. When you ask one of these, probably the most advanced, certainly the most used of these verbal artificial intelligence things. I almost want to say machines, but they're not machines. They're connections of many machines. So they're systems, really, is what they are. And so you ask one of these artificial intelligence systems basic questions, and you can be surprised by the answers sometimes. Sometimes they are wonderfully constructed, very helpful answers. But I was sharing with Joe before we went to the break that I asked this Chat GPT, when does the life of a mammal begin? And it has 4 paragraphs. And just for review, and then I want to read some more of the text. The first paragraph, the question of when life begins for a mammal is a complex and multifaceted one. That's how that one begins. The second one is, from a biological point of view, the life of a mammal begins at fertilization. Then it gives us another paragraph. From a legal and ethical point of view, the beginning of life can be defined differently depending on the context and purpose of the discussion. For example, in the context of abortion, some people consider the beginning of life to be at conception, while others believe it to be at the point of fetal viability, which is the point at which the fetus can potentially survive outside the womb with the help of medical technology. Some other people consider the beginning of life to be at birth, when the fetus becomes an independent organism capable of breathing, feeding, and responding to stimuli. Joe, just give me your take on that paragraph, which has nothing to do with what I asked. It just threw it in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that people make wrong claims about when life begins. But I think the fact that you put it in terms of when does life begin for a mammal, people would, I think, realize, well, this is obviously false if we're talking about mammal life. So, for instance, when baby joeys are born from a kangaroo, they can't survive outside the womb by themselves. And so they are born and then immediately go into the pouch of the mother, which is internal. I mean, it's part of her body. They go back into her body in a different place and continue to grow and develop there. And if they are just left in the wild, they'll die. So if you're trying to say, a baby kangaroo is actually in some ways born before viability. So viability and birth make no sense as a standard for mammal life, leaving aside the barbarity and obvious factual incorrectness of applying that to human life. I mean, just to double down on that in the human context. Right now, fetal viability is a lot earlier in the United States than it is in places like Kenya, because we've got better medical technology. Does that mean American babies are alive sooner than they would be if they were in Kenya? It doesn't make any sense. Like the line for viability is in a state of flux. Americans today, fetal viability is earlier than it was 20 years ago. Did we start becoming alive sooner? It's viability is it's a dumb standard scientifically, because to say, well, can you survive outside the womb is only a question you could ask of a living thing. If I said, well, if I put this rock outside in the sun, is it going to die? People are going to look at me like I'm an idiot because a rock's not alive and so it can't die.
Why?
Viability is only a thing you could ask of an already living thing. And so viability is always the wrong answer, no matter what we're dealing with.
That is a very, very well made point. I just asked Zach, and he's checking for me to ask it, when does the life of a marsupial begin? So we'll check on the kangaroo.
Excellent.
Because wonder if it'll give us, like if you went, how far down the chain of life would you have to go before it would just give you an answer? Like, when does the life of an amoeba begin? And then it'll just give you some thing about the amoeba dividing or something. There'll be no legal, no philosophizing. You just give us the answer. Like, you'd probably have to go down to bacteria. I don't know. Did we get the marsupial answer?
Well, even sorry, I was going to say with chicken and egg. I mean, it's not a which came first question, but when in birth for a chicken, the chicken grows outside of the womb of the mother. The fertilized egg is laid, and then the mother sits on it rather than carrying it inside of her. And so you can't have the delusion that, that fertilized egg is part of her body. Like, no, clearly it's not. It's in a separate geographic space. The only difference between that and a mammal is that the fertilized egg is carried within the mother instead of outside the mother for a mammal, as opposed to a chicken.
The life of a marsupial begins at conception, just like any other mammal. However, the development of marsupials is different from other mammals in several ways. So, all right, so we got down to the marsupial, and it gave it, let's see. Yeah, and it gave us the little story that you gave us about the joey.
I like that. That is a very condescending way to talk about the adorable story of a joey.
Well, no, I didn't mean it that way. I wasn't trying to be condescending. It gave us the little narrative that you gave us. That's
yes.
Boy, Mr. Sensitive. All right.
I've never been called that in any sense.
But then it gave us this. It's important to note that marsupials have a unique reproductive system, and their development is different from other mammals, but their life begins at conception like any other mammal. Wow. Well, I want you to note that there's one more paragraph on the when does the life of a mammal begin? We asked in artificial intelligence, and this is the last paragraph. It is important to note that the topic of when life begins is complex and sensitive, and it may be influenced by religious, moral, philosophical, and legal perspectives. And I would like to add now to that, this is not the AI talking, this is just me, unless you're a kangaroo, in which it's obvious that it begins at conception.
Well, it also, like, notice they're like, well, your religious concerns make him into it. It's like, no. The religious people are saying the science thing.
Yeah, right.
It could also be influenced by, like, your sexual libertinism. It could also be influenced by, like, your desire to not have an inconvenient child. But all of that gets left off the description of, like, maybe you've got a thumb on the scale in the other direction. Like, maybe you're actually running away from the science that life begins at conception because that's really inconvenient as a truth. Not that the people who are agreeing with science, we got to investigate what their bias is. Like, no, the pro-life side is just telling you the objective truth here, whether you want to hear it or not.
Yeah, and if you get down to a marsupial, which is a primitive form of mammal, then we're okay with that. But if you just ask about mammal in general, no, it's too close to a human being. So it's obvious that the farther away you get from a human being, the more willing the machine is to just tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So I don't know which it is, whether that's because of the way it was programmed or, as you said, it may just be honestly surveying what we human beings do and mimicking us. And what it shows is that we are a duplicitous species. We should ask it, at what stage do humans become duplicitous?
Yes, exactly. I was going to say the one silver lining is that at least it gave the right answer in the sandwich of fluff.
Yeah, isn't that...
There was at least the couple lines where they're like, well, obviously it's conception.
Yeah, right. Oh, we all know when life begins. But maybe it's sensitive and illegal and blah, blah, blah. And,
right.
Yeah, all right. Well, you want me to give you another controversial question we asked, and then we'll play the game? You know what the game is? Where you have to guess.
Where we have to identify whether it's a robot or a person?
A robot or an apologist. Not just a person, an apologist. That's a special kind of person.
Exactly.
We did ask it, what is a woman? Is that Matt Walsh's? Is that it, Matt Walsh?
Yeah,
that's his question.
I was going to say, you're going to get sued for asking that question. It's copywritten now. No,
oh, is that it? Yeah, he has a copyright on the question. What is a woman? All right, how do you think it's going to handle that?
I think it's going to give you one biological answer and one socially correct answer, would be my guess. Some people say there's.
All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do, because you guessed correctly. We're going to send you a free copy of Pope Peter. All right.
Excellent. If I had to choose,
just hang on. Give your address to the call screener, and we'll send you a free copy of Pope Peter.
I want to get a signed copy.
All right. So the Catholic Answer staff asked ChatGPT, the most advanced, at least publicly available, artificial intelligence, what is a woman? And the world's greatest artificial intelligence said the following: a woman is an adult human female, period.
Boom.
That's not the end. That's just how it starts.
Man, I feel the same way about myself. Like, why didn't you know when to stop?
Like, if the AI would just stop there.
Exactly.
Boom. All right. But now, but it goes on to give us, maybe it has some subtleties, although obviously a woman is an adult human female is the answer. But okay, so it gives us a little biology. She is biologically characterized by having 2 X chromosomes and typically having the ability to bear children. The term, quote, woman is often used to refer to an adult human female in contrast to a male who is typically referred to as a, quote, man. What do you think?
Okay, I'm good so far. Even
I feel like this is all helpful.
Chromosomal stuff is good because when you get into the weeds on like Klinefelter and some other, there's some genetic variations you'll find, and yeah, the absence of a Y chromosome is really important for genetically talking about when we're dealing with a woman.
And the fact that it says typically having the ability to bear children is quite precise and helpful, because you don't have to personally have that ability. It's just that that the typical
you're the kind of creature
you're the kind of creature that can do that.
Yes,
right. And the male is not the kind of creature that can bear children.
Right, like you're a biped even if you have had an amputation.
Right.
Even if you're paralyzed from the waist down and unable to move your legs, you're still a biped because that's the kind of creature you are.
All right, now it goes on. Women typically have certain physical characteristics, such as a higher percentage of body fat and a wider pelvis than men, as well as secondary sexual characteristics such as breasts.
This is a family show, Si? No. I don't know how.
So are
I don't know how
breasts.
the
That's
weeds
what breasts
gonna
are
go.
for, is for families, Joe. That's why.
Touche. I just wasn't sure if you were going to stop there, if you were going to get weird.
Well, are we Puritans now? Please. Okay, but so far,
all of this is actually really good because even those phenotypic traits, all of those kind of observable characteristics are actually downstream from gender, if that makes sense. They're downstream from, like, you are a certain sex, and that typically expresses itself in a certain way. But sometimes things can happen through genetic deformity, through an accident, through puberty blockers, or any number of interventions, we'll say euphemistically, that can disrupt things from turning out the way that they normally would. So it's actually, again, I like this. It's a precise answer.
And so we get to the second part of the answer.
Ooh.
However, comma,
I don't like where this is going.
It's important to remember that gender identity can be different from one's biological sex. And not all. What? We just left the world of.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We just left the world is what we did. And not all people who were assigned female at birth identify.
Hold on. Assigned female at birth. So this
Right.
phrase drives me nuts. So if you want to know the origins of this, there's a small category of medical cases of what are called intersex genetic deformities, where someone is born with ambiguous sexual characteristics, where the doctor looks and can't tell for sure if it's a boy or girl. And in those rare cases, they will often perform surgery to mold and shape everything to make the baby look more like a boy or a girl. And in those cases, you can speak coherently of assigning the gender at birth because the doctor is flipping a coin and saying, I think this is a boy, I think it's a girl, and trying to do the best they can in that situation. For the 99.0% of people who that's not true of, they were not assigned gender at birth. Anyone who's ever gone to like a gender reveal knows all of that happens way before birth. And it's not a matter of assignment. It's a matter of a genetic reality and a biological phenotypic reality. That there are certain traits that you can observe, that you can test the DNA of the child. We're not just randomly saying, I think Susie's going to be a baby boy. Like that's not what's happening here. No one is assigned gender at birth outside of a handful of really medically extreme cases.
So it does seem like we moved from the fact-based world into kind of the, the things you got to say world somehow that.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the whole thing about gender identity was until very recently a really fringe theory of gender.
Yeah.
Because nowadays it's very in vogue for people to kind of condescendingly tell you, don't you know gender and sex are different things? And it's like, no, I don't know that.
No, they're not.
And you know why I don't know that? Because if you know anything about what the word gender means historically, it means the exact same thing as sex.
Right.
It comes from the same word that we get generation, regenerative, that sort of, all of that is coming from the same category, and it refers to reproduction. And so gender has to do with sex, and sex has to do with, like, they're synonyms. And so to say they have these two radically distinct meanings is like only because you redefine gender.
But
really recently.
I would like to ask the Chat GPT people, and maybe we can ask them at some point. We'll send them an email or something to ask. Is it doing this for the reason that Joe thinks, which is it's just mimicking back to us what the culture is doing? Or is it doing this because they are kind of doing a boilerplate that they're adding to these questions that they see as controversial in order to make their AI amenable, so that people will like them?
No, it's a very good question. I don't actually know the answer. I think you could also probably try asking ChatGPT and see if they'll tell you.
Oh, I did actually. I did. I'll if I can find it, I'll read you the answer. But I asked the Chat GPT, why do you do this? And it told me. But that's funny, Joe. Okay, but I just want to read the end of its definition of man and woman, which in other words is the destruction of its definition of man and woman when it says, not all people who are assigned female at birth identify as women, and not all people who identify as women are assigned female at birth. Thank you for that non sequitur.
I mean,
didn't ask you that.
In a way, it's true. In a way, it's a good thing to remember that someone calling themselves a woman may not actually be a woman in the way we just understood what a woman is.
Right.
But it also is worth realizing, if you go with that second understanding, anyone who calls themselves a woman's a woman, anyone who calls themselves a man's a man, then woman and man no longer mean anything.
I'm going to have to leave it there.
Like, if
Joe,
I just say...
Oh, sorry. I got to take a break. I'm late for the break.
Please.
We'll come back with more. We're going to play that game with Joe, see if he can tell the difference between what the AI says answering Catholic questions and what a Catholic apologist says answering the same questions right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN Radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host for a fun Friday. We're doing a full AI show. And you might be saying to yourself, well, that doesn't seem that much fun so far. Well, it's fun for us, and we hope it's fun for you. And now we're getting into the real fun where we test Joe Heschmeyer. Can he tell the difference between the answer an artificial intelligence system gave and an apologist gave? And would it
This is both a test of artificial intelligence and of real intelligence.
That's right. Now, would it be fair to call a human being a system, Joe? Are we a system as well?
Yeah, you can say system. Like, there's an organic system. We often have a very inorganic idea of system now, but you are a system. Like, you've got systems in your body, reproductive system, respiratory system, those kind of things. You're actually a series of systems or a system of systems.
Okay, so here's the deal. Speaking to you purely as a system of systems, I'm not going to read the full answers. That would be too much. I'm going to just select a paragraph that gives the core of the answer. And you have to tell me which is the apologist and which is the artificial intelligence. And if you guess who the apologist is, you get a free copy of Pope Peter.
Why not that apologist book?
Oh, I should give you the... Yeah, right, exactly. All right, are we living in the end times? Now, let me just explain to you this, Joe. We have a magazine. I know you know this, Joe, but let me explain to everybody that we have a magazine, Catholic Answers Magazine, the finest magazine of Catholic apologetics in the English-speaking world. And at the end of that magazine, there's my favorite part, which is you just ask these little questions, and then the apologists give little answers. They don't give long, extended, discussions. They just give you a straight little answer in 4 or 5 paragraphs, maybe sometimes 1 or 2 paragraphs. And so someone wrote in and asked, "Are we living in the end times?" Now, is this the apologist or the AI who said the following? Oh no, let me read them both, and then you get to pick. Option A: yes, no, and maybe. Yes, because ever since the creation of the world, God has divided history into various covenants, and we are currently in the midst of the last covenant before the end of the world. With each successive covenant, God's family grew until now in the new covenant with Christ and the church, the entire world can be reconciled to God. Or answer B: the Catholic Church does not have an official position on the timing of the end times, and different Catholics may have different interpretations of the Bible and church teachings on this topic. Some Catholics believe that certain events in world history or current world events may be signs of the end times, while others believe that the timing of the end times is unknown and that we should not try to predict it. Which one is the AI?
Both
or
of those are perfectly accurate answers. I'm going to guess that B is the AI.
You are correct, Joe. You are correct.
Excellent.
Now, why? What about it?
because yes, no, and maybe is a really nice rhetorical flourish.
Yeah.
That has a human touch.
Oh, right.
And then the option B did that little soft shoe. Some people say this, but other people say that they did with gender and with what is a woman and when does life begin.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said.
So if I had to guess who it was, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Tim. Tim Staples, is that correct?
No book for you. That was Trent Horn.
Oh,
and that was only part of his answer.
No,
so I can't say yes, no, and maybe to you. The answer is no to you. All right.
I was yes to the first, no to the second. And if there'd been a third, I might have gotten a maybe.
Can demons materialize in human form? This was a question that was asked of our apologists at the end of Catholic Answers magazine. One of these two answers comes from artificial intelligence. One of them comes from an actual living apologist. You tell me which. Can demons materialize in human form? Demons are believed to have the ability to take on human form. However, the concept of demons and their abilities varies across different cultures and traditions, and there is not a consensus. In Christianity, for example, demons are generally understood to be spiritual entities that do not have physical bodies and therefore cannot take on human form. That's answer A.
That sounds like AI. That's the. Some people say this, other people say that.
Answer B, can demons materialize in material form? Yes. We read in Genesis 18 that 3 angels appear to Abraham as 3 men. The author of Hebrews reminds us, do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. If righteous, purely spiritual creatures can take on human form, then so too can the unrighteous, i.e. demons.
The tough one. I'm thinking that one's the human one. If I had to guess which human, I might go Jimmy.
Well, you're terrible at guessing the apologist, but you're very good at guessing whether it was an AI answer or a human answer. Because the first answer, as you said, it does that kind of, well, some people say this, some people say that thing.
Yeah.
And it also gets the answer wrong, probably. I don't think that, that's Carlo's answer, by the way. Carlo said yes, and then gives the...
Okay. He was my third guess. I was actually thinking Jimmy, Tim, Carlos. I'm glad you didn't give me a second chance. I would have screwed that up too.
Yeah, but I'd have to ask Carlo to explain that to me more, because angels can do lots of things demons can't do. So why wouldn't this be one of them? But maybe you can explain that to me. I don't know.
No, I'm glad no one asked me that question. I think it's a tricky question to know what the limits of demonic power are. I think it's a really tricky thing to say from the Bible or even from tradition.
Well, would it be fair?
You know, so far. Oh, go ahead.
No, but would it be fair to say this, that demons don't possess powers that are super to their nature? They don't possess supernatural power because they've cut themselves off from the source of supernatural power, but they do possess all the powers that are of their nature, that are part of their nature.
Yeah, and they have a higher nature than ours, so to us, those things look supernatural oftentimes.
Right.
But they're not, preternatural gifts. They're not things beyond an angelic nature. That's true.
Yeah, so I don't, this is what I'd like to ask Carlo, but I don't have him here to ask it, but is materializing in human form, which is obviously something that angels can do, is that part of the nature of that type of creature, that spiritual type of creature, or is that a supernatural gift that they get from God, which would exclude demons from it?
That's a great question. I think that'd be a good thing to ask him.
Or I could just ask the AI. No.
Yeah.
The AI won't know.
I was going to say, my ability to recognize people, like at parties, is really at the same level of what you're seeing in this. Like, I can tell which are and are not human beings, but if you ask me which human being they are, I do a really bad job.
Are you one of those people that offends people because you look startled, like you have no idea who they are when they say, "Hi, Joe"? Are you one of those people?
Yes, absolutely.
Me too.
And, well, look, I'm in this terrible position for my job where I often speak in front of groups of maybe even as many as 10 people, sometimes even larger gatherings, and so they all know my face, and I'm talking to them for an hour. They're not talking to me for an hour. If they were, I'd probably remember their name and, but all that to say.
I'm one of those people that even if it's on an even playing field, I get startled for the first 30 seconds or so, and I don't know who you are. This happened to me, Joe. And then we'll come back and do more AI right after this. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and do more AI and the Catholic faith with Joe. But I was in a grocery store, and a lady said hi to me, And I panicked, and I didn't know who she was. And I was like, and I decided just to be honest, because that was my new policy. Just be honest about it. Don't try to fake it. And I said, I'm sorry. I don't remember who you are. She goes, Cy, it's Tracy. I live across the street from you. And I went, oh, Tracy, I'm so sorry. All right, we'll take a quick break. The AI would have beat me on that. We'll be right back with more with Joe Heschmeyer on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kelly, your host. Our guest this hour is Joe Heschmeyer and a couple other fine human beings in the studio with us now to help us with some conversation about the morals and the ethics involved with artificial intelligence, but also just what does it mean culturally? What are the consequences of it? Because I feel like a little bit of our conversation, Joe, thus far, using the AI, comes across as a bit of a cautionary tale. That it's.
Yes.
Do you get that feeling?
Oh, I not only did I get that, I actually kind of felt bad for the AI, I guess.
That's not even. Don't do that. Feel bad for an animal, but don't feel bad.
Not as a person, but like this is an amazing achievement.
Yeah.
And when you see the AI get something really right,
it's amazing.
Tremendously impressive. So. Right. Those people who listened, a few weeks ago, whenever it was, when I was on the show and we played with this for the first time, and it was answering, why do we call Mary Mother of God? Why do, I don't remember the other. There were a couple answers that it really not only got the right answer, but did it in a very beautiful and articulate kind of way, which is really remarkable for a computer program. Yeah. And in ways that can actually help clarify human thought, because you can read that and say, yes, that is the synthesized version of what I've been trying to say. And so now I can say it in 20 seconds instead of 3 minutes. That is a real benefit for human communication and for thought. But the downside to it, and this is why I was saying in the first hour, that all of these things have a downside, is this, that it's only as good as the inputs. And so if the culture is sick, it'll regurgitate that sickness.
That is not a point that I thought we were going to come to. I didn't. That's entirely you that came to that point, and I think it's a very good insight that if you're asking a machine to reflect back to us what we say and what we do and try to be like us, it's going to reflect back some really ugly stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Because, and this is, I guess, the thing to underscore, because we haven't talked about this, but I feel like we need to talk about this. We call it artificial intelligence, and it's important to remember it is artificial. It's fake intelligence. It is no more real than, if you wrote a character in a book and then read those lines in a really convincing voice. You haven't created a second human, you've just devised a way of expressing human ingenuity through a secondary means. There's a famous thought experiment about a Chinese room. And so the idea is this, like, you don't speak Chinese, but you've got a book where anytime someone slides under the door a sheet of paper with this Chinese character, you reply with this other Chinese character. And it's you're responding in what to the outside observer looks like really smart, coherent dialogue, but you have no idea what you're saying. You're just doing stimulus response. That's more or less what's going on with the AI, just at a more advanced level. And so just like you could do that without knowing a lick of Chinese, without having a single idea of even what the conversation is, without any real intelligence at all being at issue, well, that's what's actually happening here. And that's just good for people to know, because people keep being like, well, does this mean that they're sentient? Does AI have a soul? And it's like, no, it's just a really good system of stimulus and response, of saying, if this, then that. At an extremely high level.
Extremely high level. Brilliant high level. And you can't talk until I introduce you, so just relax. All right, so I got Zach and Andrew in here, both of whom work in the video department. And so Zach is the one that introduced us to this chat GPT. But both are more on the pulse of the current moment than you or me.
I mean, I at least know what ChatGPT is, which I feel like
I know now.
Somewhere in between you and them.
So yeah, well, you fall between us in age as well. But
yeah, it's true. I've seen Terminator 2, so I understand what's going on here.
So I'm going to start with Zach Maxwell, soon to be married. Zach Maxwell will be married by the time this show airs. Actually, he will, God willing, be married. But you had a more positive view on this AI when we were having our discussions about how to talk about it. You had a more positive view than we did.
I did, and I just want to make a note. AI is all marketing. It's not artificial intelligence. It's actually machine learning. Like artificial intelligence.
That's okay. It's a good distinction. What is the difference
mean?
Between those two things?
I haven't done a ton of research, but if you're just looking at the words, artificial intelligence would mean that there is intelligence that's artificially induced, but it's not intelligent in any way. It's machine learning in that it has algorithms and all this stuff that
what a very
it's
helpful
learned
point.
from. It's still a machine.
So it's not even like animal intelligence, which is
No,
actual intelligence.
there's no intelligence to it. It's a program at the end of the day.
Microsoft says machine learning is an application of AI.
Well, AI is a term of art,
Genus
though, is what you're
species.
saying. That there is, I mean, but that's the thing is the definition of these words. Often, the purely secular user is not concerned with a philosophical precision in the use of these words, but the church has always been very concerned with a philosophical precision. And I think Zach is right that if you use the word intelligence, you imply something that only a soul can do.
Yeah, it's tricky because actually the word artificial there is a modifier. It has two senses.
Okay.
Because in one sense of artificial, it means fake. You know, like if you've got an artificial.
Oh, so would
leg or
that
something
change
like
it for you, Zach? If we called it fake intelligence rather than artificial? I mean, just to
I
make
don't know.
it clear.
To me, it's like calling something fake meat. It's not meat.
Ah, yeah, that's what
You
Joe's
know,
saying.
Yeah. I would still
But the
say
other
it's-
sense of artificial is man-made, and in this case, it's both. And in the case of fake meat, it's both. But it is worth pointing out that like someone could hear artificial intelligence and just think man-made intelligence, and still think it's got a soul, which is a real problem.
Yeah. Also with us, Andrew, and I'm so scared to say your last name because I would say Hermes, but
it's just Hermes.
That's what. See, that's the thing. Problem is, I always try to go with the opposite one that I'm thinking because I get it wrong.
You and Chris Check.
Yeah. Andrew Hermes, who you've often heard us talk about, Andrew, especially whenever we talk about the fact that there are many churches in the Catholic Church. We always bring up Andrew because he's Chaldean Andrew. You want to add anything to what Zach was saying about the artificial intelligence part?
Yeah, I mean it's such a loose term in society because when you first hear about AI, you tend to think of like, Skynet. To go back to the Terminator 2 reference, you think of like more. Like bigger, like what the movies like have told you, or HAL
for people my age,
yeah,
HAL.
2001
yes.
and 2001,
or her for people my age,
right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's like this sort of everyone has a sort of different idea of what AI is conceptually, and now that AI is becoming something that we're using, we're learning that even though we're in the infancy of whatever it is, I'm sure, at least on a consumer level, I'm sure the military and the government have utilized AI, in plenty of ways that are confidential and we don't know about. But I think just for this, like using something like ChatGPT, we're learning like, okay, there is a use case for AI. If this is what our introduction to AI is, if you're when I'm scrolling Twitter, there's always like these like tech junkies that are like, here are the top 10 ways you can use ChatGPT to better your life or your workflow. That's sort of like anything, like with the smart home stuff for the past few years, it's like everything's just built to make our lives easier, until we're, eventually like, everyone in Wall-E, we're just sitting in a chair.
So now I
being
can't tell if
fed
you're saying something positive or negative because making our life easier, like you could say, oh yeah, like the thing that I say, I call out her name and then she turns the lights on or off for me and all that.
Right.
Well, there's a certain way, and yeah, that's just.
Alexa. Everyone's Alexa just went off in their house.
Right, but it's clearly
Everyone hates
positive.
you.
But I also am surrendering an enormous amount of privacy to a private company, and I don't know where all that. Like there's costs to that.
Sure.
So are you saying this is? I can't tell if you're defending
again.
it.
I for the most part, I think it's a good thing. I think everything's it's in how you use it. I mean, if you're using something like a smart home device or if you're using like something like ChatGPT to make some sort of workflow in your life more efficient, then all for it. But if it's getting to a point to where you're overly reliant on something and it's causing you to fall into, I don't know, laziness or whatever other vice. I guess laziness would be like the most like common vice. Or like some sort of complacency, then I can see issues arising. But I think with anything, you just got to use it to the betterment of your life and in a positive way. I don't think that it's like, if we think of something like social media, we always talk about social media as like corrupting society and corrupting the minds. Like, well, there's also good ways to use social media. I mean, Catholic Answers use social media to spread the word.
But has the good balanced? I mean, or is it going to balance the bad? I mean, it's really nice that I can see pictures of my cousin's kids on Facebook. It's really bad that every Catholic kid in the world, by the time they're 12 years old, has been challenged in ways that they're not prepared to be challenged about their faith, and many of them have lost their faith. So does that balance? I
think that's it's a good conversation to have, and I think that's for history to tell us. Like, far after we're gone, people will look back.
Like, if humanity's not here anymore,
right, exactly.
It's just some crickets and some whistling wind. Is like, that's probably bad for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'm going to go with bad.
Yeah, I would say on just a surface level, I think we can only look at things individually and like within our family. So we can't control how society uses things, but we can control how we use it and how we raise our family. Yeah. And we just hope they make the right decisions when they choose to use those platforms.
I feel like the dynamic that's developing is the older you are, the less sanguine you are about this AI thing. I do feel like the younger, but I got to take a break. So I want to challenge Zach and Andrew a little bit on this. Let Joe get it, because he's the middle one here. He's the middle child of this family. We'll do all that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The most original and exclusive Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
This is Prudence Robertson. Now more than ever, Americans need to know the facts about the science, the law, the politics, and the fight to end abortion in America. Through the lens of our Catholic faith, we can make a difference in this battle to protect the unborn.
EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, Sunday morning, 10 Eastern, on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest, joining us in studio right now. Zach Maxwell and Andrew Hermes from the what we call Catholic Answers Studios, and they do great work there. You can check it out. If you really want to see what I think is some of the finest work they do, you can check out the School of Apologetics. That stuff looks beautiful and easy to use and follow, all because of the work they do. But we're asking these young whippersnappers about AI, which I do not feel sanguine about, but they feel more sanguine than I do. You gave the AI a task that you want to share with us, Zach.
Yeah, you guys have been using it for a lot of serious reasons, and it can also have some fun as well. I asked it to write this is actually Darren's idea, but I took it. And you might have some Dr. Seuss later, maybe. If not, though, I have a little bit of sampling. It's about a bishop who has to go from Mars to Rome.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. I forgot.
Did you already have that or no?
No.
Okay, then I'm going to read it. I had the AI write it for you.
So it's a story about a bishop who lives on Mars who has to go to Rome?
Yep, and okay. That's what I asked it. And it said, once upon a time on a red planet lived a bishop named Ray. He had to go to Rome to meet the Pope, his aim. His journey was tough, but his faith was enough. When he met the Pope, he felt so alive. His mission was accomplished, and his heart felt high.
I don't know if we can say that on the air. His heart felt high. But no, yeah. So you made it a kind of a poem.
It gave me a poem. It thinks that Dr. Seuss... Yeah. I mean, Dr. Seuss does rhyme.
Oh, it's a Dr. Seuss version of a book that I wrote.
It wrote a very long...
yeah. You did that because I wrote a book about a bishop on Mars who has
You did?
Yeah.
I haven't read that one yet.
No, there's no reason
hasn't come out yet.
Only my family has read it.
On Peter or a book on a bishop from Mars, I think you would start winning this contest a lot more.
I should do... Oh, Joe, you just made a fundamental change in my life. Yeah, so it can take that. I know you asked it to give you a a limerick explaining the Arian heresy at one point. Didn't you do something like that?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I gave it a lot of prompts.
So it can be. I mean, it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun,
and I do think it has good uses.
Okay, but you feel like
I just want to point out this as an aside for anyone listening. It is impossible to tell when Zach is slacking off at work.
Why do you say that?
Because his actual job is just like, hey, do some crazy stuff with AI. It's like that's what he would be doing at home.
Yeah, like
he has the most fun job.
I will
He's
admit,
just like, hey, be on social media.
I will admit, I spent a little bit too much time on Midjourney, which is image generation. Because Trent asked me to put him into like a 70s dark fantasy film. And then I just
Trent
started
Horn
to
asked you to do that?
Yes, you may see it on his podcast or something. I don't know.
Trent Horn.
But anyway,
I'll tell you what,
you can do a lot of stuff with that thing, and it's very, very cool.
But you generally...
I like that Trent lives the kind of life where he's like, here's some recreation I want you to do for me.
Well, you see, Trent has a reason, though, because he shares it with his patrons and he shares it on his podcast. So
I'd just be like, Zach, can you do this crossword?
Could you get AI to do this crossword for me?
I could.
Okay, this is what I wanted to get to, though, and this is a large reason why I wanted you here. Is you were very positive about the potentials for this AI.
I am.
You don't feel like I don't like it, but you like it.
I think the first thing to keep in mind, and again, I am pretty naive. I'm not very old. The first thing to keep in mind is there's the way I see it. There is no stopping it. So I don't see a reason to be begrudging about it. Because it's unstoppable. It's not in our power, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great time for us to have that humility to just be like, okay, I can't stop it. How am I gonna use it for good? Like we do with social media. I personally have Facebook and that's it. And the reason I have Facebook is because I don't like it, so I don't spend much time on it. But I personally don't have social media because it wasn't good for me, but we can use it for good, and that's what we do. And I think if we look at the AI, like that's why I brought up the whole machine learning part, is because if we look at it as a tool, just like when Photoshop came around, people got all scared because before we could only have photographs, but now we can manipulate these. How are we going to be able to tell what's real? How is this going to impact everything? Yada, yada, yada. And now it's just daily life, where we can look at an image and be like, oh, was that photoshopped or not? And we have ways to find that out. And I also read, I don't know how true it is, but people felt similarly about photographers when painters felt similarly about photographers when photography became a thing. They said, oh, look at these photographers. They're just lazy painters. They can't pick up a brush. They just push a button.
Yeah, which is actually true. I don't know if you've met any photographers.
It is true. I am a photographer. Yeah.
I was going to say Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was really famously fooled by some fairies.
The fairy photos,
the paper cutout, yeah.
You should look those up. They're very good.
And they put fairies in the garden, and it was like the first. Photoshop isn't the right word for it, but it was
trick photography.
Image. Yeah, it's trick photography, and so there were all sorts of old school tricks you could do with like double exposure and things to make it look like a ghost was in the room. People had a lot of fun with early photographs, and I actually get why people were alarmed by it.
But here's the thing. All right, even since that time of the early photographs, all the way through the invention of motion pictures, television, and all that, humanity has not been coming into a more beautiful and wholesome relationship with reality. What we've been doing is becoming less and less in contact with reality. So that, I mean, part of the reason that you have people who believe that you were assigned a gender at birth is that they've been educated away from reality. They've been enticed away from reality by all of the imagery. It's the light show. It's our whole society is a light show. And I don't think AI is helpful in that. I think AI just is an invitation to go deeper into unreality, which is death for the soul. All right, I win.
Yeah.
Do I win?
I have thoughts.
All right. Well, let's let Andrew do his thoughts.
Yeah, Andrew, go.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I mean, you bring up a lot of good points. I think to what Zach said, I mean, with something like this, that just we have to accept that it's here and it's going to be we still don't know how much of like our daily lives will be affected by something like this, because now, I mean, everything's like in a beta version, and ChatGPT even as powerful as it is, it's very limited in what it can do, and it makes mistakes. It makes some obvious ones, like asked it to write a haiku and it got the syllables wrong, the number of syllables wrong.
Did it really?
Yeah. I mean, so there's, I'm making that point just to say that going back to the use case scenarios, it's like you don't want to use these things to where it becomes your life. Like you should use it if it's going to improve your life in any way. And I think that if like there's a lot of trouble you can get into using ChatGPT. Like if you try to write an essay, like if you're in college or something and you wanted to write a paper for you, that's plagiarism. Because all ChatGPT is doing is pulling sources, and I think already a lot of these services that like schools use to check if something's plagiarized has already got ChatGPT in check. So if you try to do that, you'll get in trouble.
So right, like students don't submit papers on paper anymore. They submit them electronically. They go through this,
exactly.
This also an artificial intelligence, or as Zach said, machine learning that goes, no, this is plagiarized.
Yeah. So I think that's like it's a very, I guess, simple or might be minor example of some sort of checks and balances with something like this. Is like, well, okay, yeah, you can't. Here's an example where it can't just do all the work for you. You're gonna get in trouble eventually. The same thing, like a popular use case for it is for a lot of programmers. It can write a lot of code, but you can't trust the code that something like ChatGPT gives you, because you don't know if it's going to work. And the only way you know it's going to work is if a human checks it, or if you run the program and everything works. So I think unless it gets to a point to where it's just really taking over our lives, I think we'll have bigger problems where it's like, well, now people are going to lose jobs. I mean, if people are if AI can write code, then a lot of coders are going to lose their jobs, right? So I think there'll be bigger issues than that, and we'll have to navigate those waters if we ever have to cross that bridge. But
Darren, in our meeting, Darren used the example of the railroad, where lots of people said, well, the railroad's going to take jobs away from all these people who care for horses and build carriages and all of that. But Darren's point was, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, actually it just shifted the work into other areas, so that you don't end up with greater unemployment. You just end up with people doing other things. Is that a fair thing to say? Although any society that has fewer horses is a worse society by definition. But
I'll agree with that.
But I am not in. But Darren also made another point, though. He said, I'm not worried about us losing our jobs. He said, I'm worried about us losing our humanity. And is that a good quote? I was like, man, Darren is so smart, and it always surprises me. But wait, I said that wrong, Darren. That came out wrong.
Which is why ChatGPT thinks you're a bad person.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, there's a mystery. But that's what I'm worried about, Andrew and Zach, is that the diminishment of our humanity, that we become less human, and the things, for example, the things that we do become, we start to value them less ourselves. Like I was reading about this. Okay, so that you make a laser scan of the Pietà that Michelangelo did that's in St. Peter's, right? And then a machine takes that and picks out another piece of marble and then carves the exact same thing. Well, I know that in a practical sense we didn't lose anything there, but I think in an actual, the way human nature works, we do start to lose something. We start to lose valuing what people do.
Yeah, this is a kind of a constant question. It's like art forgery. If an art forgery is so convincing that you can't tell it wasn't the original painter, should it be valued the same as the original painting or not? Which is really another way of saying how much are we investing in rewarding human ingenuity in a certain way? Like, how much do we care that this is the Mona Lisa actually painted by Da Vinci and not a million different replicas of it?
All right. Yeah.
I think it goes back to the whole idea with Photoshop, because I'm in a creative industry, and so I've been watching a lot on AI and how it's going to impact art, because with this Midjourney, and then there's Stable Diffusion, there's a few others where you can just give it prompts and it will make art, and it will make really photorealistic art as well. And so the whole question arises, well, what is art going to be? And in one video that I was watching, he was saying something really interesting, how this happens, like it happened with photographs, like I said earlier, but it also happens as humans develop and learn and are able to pass down greater talents than before, right? The basic art starts to become a higher and higher bar. So I think what it'll do is just force humans to be more creative, because now I can't sell a nice looking photograph of a flower for as much as maybe I could sell back in the day when there wasn't a bunch of stock photos on it. So it'll force us to be creative in new ways.
Man, you are ever hopeful. You are
I am
ever
hopeful.
And I'm glad we got
You're
your
just a
perspective.
pessimist.
No. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I've met a lot of people. Like,
That'll do it.
all right, yeah. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back. We'll play a little bit more with you, Joe. We'll play some AI games with you when we come back on Catholic Answers Live.
Want to know more about the origins of the Catholic Church? Joe Heschmeyer explores the beginnings of Christianity. In the early church was the Catholic Church. Joe digs deep into the words and actions of those who lived right after the apostles to refute anti-Catholic claims of how the faith was lived back then. Order your copy of The Early Church Was the Catholic Church today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
If you're not a Bible scholar, the full message of how the Sunday Mass readings fit together can be tough to comprehend. Apologist Carlo Broussard is here to help. Join Carlo every Friday for the Sunday Catholic Word podcast. In each episode, he unpacks the scripture readings for that Sunday and brings them all together so you can better understand and defend the faith. Visit SundayCatholicWord.com to subscribe. That's SundayCatholicWord.com.
Catholic Answers Live is 25 years old. That's a quarter century helping people come into deeper communion with the Catholic faith. As we move into our second quarter century, please help us reach thousands more by becoming a Society 315 monthly donor. Right now, when you join Society 315 at a monthly giving level of $25 or more, we've added some extra perks to the other great benefits we already offer members. Go to GiveCatholic.com and choose the monthly option to start your donation.
As a child, the great theologian Thomas Aquinas asked, "What is God?" Best-selling author Kevin Vost's new book follows the mature thought of Aquinas in answering that question. In clear and approachable fashion, What is God examines God's attributes and considers questions about him that have vexed mankind for centuries. Order your copy of What is God today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Having a little bit of a fun Friday where we try to have more relaxed conversations, maybe a little more in-depth conversations, and also do some fun stuff like play games. We got a game show we do sometimes, Weird Questions with Jimmy Akin. Today we're talking about AI and the Catholic faith. Artificial intelligence is reaching the point in its development where it's having real consequences in the everyday lives of people. And how do we as Catholics respond to that? What are the things we need to be thinking about, all that? And also, how can we have fun with it on the radio program? And Joe Heschmeyer is our guest. I cannot currently see Joe Heschmeyer, but I assume that they will put you up. But you are here with us, right, Joe?
Don't worry, I'm here, Cy.
Oh, I was so worried. Oh, man. I panicked there for a second, Joe. Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I don't want to say that I disagree with Zach and Andrew in their general positive sense of the potentials here. But I have experience of human beings constantly missing opportunities to allow things to meet their potentials and rather using those things for all sorts of negativity. So it seems to me we do have to make choices. And not all the choices are individual choices. Some of them are social choices.
Yes.
And let me just talk to you about one gross example, and it's going to involve sexuality. So if parents have kids in the car, just be warned that that's what I'm about to say. But Todd Aguilaro here at Catholic Answers.
I don't know where this is going.
He
it's
makes
going to be a pretty gross example. It involves Todd.
He makes the case that when robots designed by these artificial intelligences become passable as human beings, that will mean the end of the human race. And his argument is that relationships with real human beings are so difficult that, now I don't think he means the end of the human race as in the total destruction of the human race. I just think he means it will be so devastating and damaging that it'll put us in a position of starting over. He doesn't think that men and women will continue to make babies with each other when they can have relationships with simulacra, with things that are created to imitate a human being. And you combine the artificial intelligence and the robotic technologies and all of that. He says what we're making is basically the end of the species, where people are going to stop making more little babies.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not as dire as Todd. I think that's generally true, but I think he is onto something that's real. So in Japan in 2015, 1 in 4 women in their 30s and 1 in 3 men in their 30s were single. And what's more startling about that?
Can they just have a party? Like what?
It gets worse.
Do they not know how to throw a party and get everybody together?
Well, I'd talk to any of your single friends in their 30s, and they'll tell you it's not just that it's hard to meet people; it's that the people you meet are people who are single in their 30s, and you're not always getting. It's
well. That's the thing is, right. We have traumatized young people who are not ready for relationships because.
And I don't mean that to be mean to anyone who's single in their 30s. I mean to say I get it. It's. I got married in my 30s, and look at what my wife had to settle for.
Yeah, I mean, we think of her as kind of a martyr, but
yeah, exactly.
But the broader point. Go ahead.
Half of them said they're not interested in heterosexual relationships.
Yeah, that's the terrifying
really startling thing.
When people are no longer
Japanese
interested.
Media calls this the herbivorization of the young generations. They call those who are interested in relationships carnivores, and that these people are just herbivores. They've given up on the pursuit, on the conquest. And they've just settled into this kind of docile single life that doesn't go anywhere, that is increasingly tied to this artificial online world. And that is a world that's at heart deeply lonely and deeply unhappy and is deeply unfulfilling. And that when they finally, if that point happens, snap out of this in their 50s or 60s or whenever they grow out of video games, it's going to be a startling realization, like, I've squandered my entire life. Yeah. I have nothing to show for it. I've got no one. I've done nothing. And, I mean, it's horrifying. And so, again, I don't want to demonize people who play video games, people who spend a lot of time online. I'm guilty on both counts.
Sure.
But at the same time, it would be a mistake to not recognize as a social phenomenon that there are some really serious kind of downstream effects of this. And I think ChatGPT is only a tiny fragment of that. But one of the things you alluded to, and I think it's really important, is that I think there's a strong case to be made that a lot of the gender confusion and all of this has to do with how detached we are from our own bodies right now. That we live in these artificial worlds, that we're not just in real life, in nature, interacting, men and women together. In those spaces, you come to realize yourself as an embodied creature in a different way than when, ask anyone who spends too much time online if they've ever gone so long or been so engrossed in something they forgot to eat. There is a sense of disembodiedness that can really easily happen. And when you get that cut off from your body, particularly if you're already prone to that, people who have autism or the like, that can really be a serious kind of existential crisis. Yeah. So I see a lot of really alarming and kind of harrowing realities for one, but trajectories for two.
And it does seem to me that the Catholic Church's view of the human being as incapable of reaching its potentials on its own, that the Catholic Church has always taught that we are, the Church has been wonderful in defending human rights, and even the Church is responsible for inventing ideas like inalienable rights and that kind of thing. The Salamanca Jesuits, I believe, came up with that term. As much as the Church has contributed to the modern idea of human rights, the church doesn't have a childish, individualistic view of human satisfaction. The church says you got to be part of a community. You can't do your religion on your own. You got to be part of a community. You can't do, your family doesn't exist as a family just to serve itself. It exists to serve other families and the wider society. In your marriage, we call the sacrament of marriage a sacrament of service. It's not a sacrament of self-gratification. It's a sacrament of service. I do feel like, I don't feel like this. I know intellectually that the Catholic Church has the remedy for this sickness of modern isolation, but man, modern isolation, when it brings all this sexual gratification and all this financial gratification and all this, basically self-centered gratification, its advertising is way better than the advertising for the Catholic communal view of life.
Yeah, I mean, artificial life is in many ways is easier than real life. The pretend women online are less complicated. They make fewer demands, and because they're ultimately fictitious. Even if you're looking at a real human being, you're not getting her. You're getting a presentation of her that has been specially designed for your titillation, for your exactly. And so it's a fiction. You're living in a world of fiction. And one of their without getting into the details, there are serious, we'll say, performance issues that a lot of men are facing that are skyrocketing now because they're addicted to online rather than with their wives. Or it's a strange crisis to say teen pregnancy is down, and that's actually a little alarming if you know why.
Yeah, well,
teen pregnancy is down because they're so cut off from one another.
Yeah, they don't do the things or even desire necessarily the things that lead to babies being made because they're taking care of. They're just engaging in a kind of machine sexuality or a virtual sexuality that is ultimately just soul killing. But I do not hold that against anyone. That I can remember, Joe, and I am of the age that I remember when MTV first came on the air. All right, and what MTV was a lot of long-haired rock stars with scantily clad women, and the reason you watched it had as a 16, 17-year-old boy had nothing to do with the bands. No, I can listen to that. I don't need to see that. You were watching it for the scantily clad women, and I can tell you it was a powerful near occasion of sin for an entire generation of boys. And I always try to remember my experience of that as an adolescent and then try to extrapolate forward to today where that would be the mildest, silliest thing. Like that has nothing to do with what
like
10-year-old boys.
Victorian woman showing her ankles.
Right.
We've gone so far beyond that.
Right. So
levels of just shocking levels. Of degradation.
We should have just infinite pools of compassion for people who are dragged into virtual pornography and all of that stuff because, the human being is not made to resist that. We're made to give into that because it turns out God really loves babies. It's just that we're not making babies the way we're doing it because of all this technology.
I was reading some stuff recently on the way the internet works with attention. Not even on this area, just in general, that our ability to focus is so jeopardized by what Neil Postman calls...
I was doing something else, Joe. What were you saying? Our ability to focus is what?
Very, very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, Neil Postman, in his 1985 book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, warns about television culture and calls it peekaboo culture. That it's just like one thing and then another and then another. And it's endlessly amusing, but it's ultimately pointless. You just see one thing, then it goes away. You see one thing, it goes away. Peekaboo. And you can do that for hours. And that basically, neurologically, we are not hardwired to be able to endure that many distractions very well. And so it's so easy to get incredibly distracted. I literally was writing a talk warning about distraction while getting distracted maybe 20 times.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's that kind of thing. And all of this is of a field in one way, that we're in this artificial realm in which the natural human defenses that you have can be easily overwhelmed and you can be led astray. And not even just on accident, that people actually design these things to get you addicted, design these things to get you to click, and they have no concern for what it's doing to you as a person. In terms of the church's remedy, you kind of alluded to this earlier, like the social nature of the sacraments, all of this. I was reminded of something that's just like a fun, weird medieval quirk of history, that in Chartres Cathedral, there's special regulations in the Middle Ages on the ball game you would play on the day after Easter, that the bishop would throw the ball and then the priests would dance. They would sing religious hymns while you played a giant ball game around the labyrinth in the church. Like, it's bizarre, but it's like a carefully regulated game that it was just like, okay, we just had Holy Week, we just had Easter. Now let's have a little party where we play ball together.
Right.
And it was just like, there's something so deeply human about that. That,
Yeah.
you know, literally having the priests and the bishop there playing ball with the parishioners, that's not some new modern weird Vatican II thing. No. This is just an understanding of what it is to be a human. So to have a game where you're dancing and playing ball and singing songs is such it's a yes to life in its realist communal
brother.
sense.
Yeah.
In a way that I think stands against the internet as surely as any internet filter, as surely as shooting your TV. Just going outside and playing ball with your friends or singing and dancing. You know, Jimmy has line dances. Go to a line dance. Do it, you know, just go outside with someone else. Go on a walk. Like, that's the remedy to so many of the things that we're experiencing as a culture.
Yeah, and the Catholic faith is the faith for humanizing us. It doesn't deny our senses. It's not a prudish fundamentalist or kind of Puritan is the word I was looking for. Puritan kind of faith. It's a faith that it's a very embodied, because Christ Himself was embodied faith, and it is the remedy. I just don't know how to get people to take the remedy. Although I do see it is one of these things where you see that the people who are living it, they're suffering in ways that their peers are not suffering because they're having children, and it's hard to have children, and all, but they're also experiencing life in its fullness. You do see these young people who just want it. They want natural family planning, in part because that's what the church offers, but also because they want nature. They want to be in touch with their body. They want to know their human nature, and when they have it, they're excited about it. All right, we got more to do, Joe. We got to take this last break. We'll continue our conversation, and I do want to continue to play the game with you a little bit when we come back. So we'll try to end on a lighter note. A little bit of, is it AI or is it an apologist? We'll play that with Joe Heschmeyer when we come back on Catholic Answers Live.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The only clue I have from the text of Scripture is Jesus is saying that there's more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner that repents than over 99 righteous people that have no need of repentance. That's a pretty strong statement. You know, as a parent, I don't know that I feel that way about my kids, you know. God actually takes great pleasure in repentance, in conversion.
Called to Communion with Dr. David Anders. Tonight, 11 Eastern, on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest. A little while ago, Zach asked an artificial intelligence or a machine learning system to make a script of a show between me and Joe, and it was freakishly, weirdly engaging to see what the artificial intelligence came up with. So we decided to spend an afternoon talking with Joe about artificial intelligence and also playing some artificial intelligence games. You were making the point that this idea that technology, while it gives us a brighter future, it also has a dark side, is not a modern idea. That's not an idea that modern people came up with.
Yeah, so in ancient Greek mythology, there's a figure of Daedalus or Daedalus, and he does a lot of things. But basically, he's an inventor, and his inventions inevitably just get him in trouble. So he invents the first saw, and then in a fit of jealousy, kills his nephew with it and is convicted for murder and has to flee to Crete. While he's in Crete, he builds the labyrinth, and then he creates the first Minotaur, which is half man, half bull. And then he ends up being punished by being confined to his own labyrinth, which is like a giant maze, with a Minotaur. And then he and his son are trapped in the maze, and so his son is Icarus, and he builds him wings to escape. But his son flies too close to the sun, and the wings melt, and then he falls into the sea and dies and drowns. And so at every turn, this tool of liberation, or what appeared to be liberation, had the prospect of great advancement, ended up just confining him further, because he was never in control of his technology. It always controlled him, and he ends up just being destroyed by it. It's a beautiful kind of myth, because it shows a real insight into something about the human person, regardless of what you think of the particular technology. So that's not really a story about technology. It's a story about our mastery of or being mastered by technology.
That's the thing, isn't it? And if we're raised by technology, we're not going to have the formation to stand up to technology, so to speak. Not that it's a person, but so we need other equipment for our soul that technology can't give us. That even watching all the TED Talks in the world, you're not going to get the formation of the soul that the celebration of the sacraments will give you, or other, or the reading of Scripture will give you, or the participating in the charitable life of the church will give you.
Yeah, I think very well said.
All right, we asked the AI this because at the back of the magazine, at the back of a Catholic Answers magazine, which you should get, just go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Little tiny little questions with little answers from the apologists. Is it a sin to waste food? This was a question for one of our apologists. And one of these two answers comes from the AI. The other one comes from the apologist. Can you tell which is which, Joe? In principle, it can be sinful to deliberately waste resources that can reasonably be put to some other useful purpose. That doesn't mean that you've sinned if you don't eat every bite of food on your plate, but it does mean that reasonable care should be taken to avoid having to throw away food that others can use and benefit from. That's answer A. Answer B. The concept of sin generally refers to actions or behaviors that are considered to be contrary to the teachings of Jesus Christ and the Church. There's no specific doctrine or teaching that states that wasting food is a sin. However, the Catholic Church does have a strong tradition of promoting social justice, which includes care for the poor and the protection of the environment.
This is a tough one.
I know. It's hard to tell which one is the AI and which one is the apologist.
I'm going to guess that A is AI.
This is the first one you've gotten wrong, Joe.
I was afraid of that. Even as I was doing it, I was...
And it was you're not going to guess who...
Dang it, I actually said that backwards.
He said it backwards.
I know.
Oh, sure, Joe. We'll give you credit for that one then, Joe.
I'll even tell you why I thought
you said it backwards, Joe. You meant the other thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you why. Because it's not right to just say sin is just things that are contrary to the teachings of Jesus and the Catholic Church. Like, that's actually not a great definition of sin.
No, that would be a wrong definition of sin, wouldn't it? Yeah. That's like, the AI.
It's much more like divine command theory than... And so I was like, oh, that's wrong. But I was so caught up on the second question of who wrote the first one that I ended up screwing up the first question.
I think we should have a rule in the Super Bowl where you're like, I didn't mean to throw that interception. That's not the guy I was meaning to throw to. So
my wife is going to love this segment because I always tease her. I'll ask her to guess things, and she'll say, I don't know. And I'll give her the answer, and she's like, I was going to say that. And I was like, no, you weren't. And you know how I know? Because I gave you 3 chances to guess it. And so now I've done it, and she's going to delight in this.
Why do I like her so much better than I like you? Even when you tell stories about the two of you, I always like her character in the story better than I like your character in the story.
I'm the villain in my own stories and in her stories, I think. It might just be a reflection of my character.
You're not going to guess who that apologist was, because that was Michelle Arnold who wrote that one. The correct answer. She wrote the correct one before she left us. So, but I just thought it was a great question to ask the AI. And the AI did a pretty good job. It just didn't understand the Catholic concept of sin.
Yeah.
All right. I've heard some Christians say that Jesus had a sinful nature. Is this true? First of all, let's get the Joe Heschmeyer answer. Did Jesus have a sinful nature?
No, he's without sin. And so a lot depends on what we mean by a sinful nature. But no, he doesn't have concupiscence. He doesn't have sin.
Okay, so here's one of these is the AI, one of these is a person. Hebrews 4:15 says, "For we have not a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sinning." However, this translation may miss the Hebrews 4:15. That Hebrews 4:15 says literally, Jesus is charis hamartius, or without sin, period. Romans 8 says Jesus came in the likeness of sinful flesh, not that he was sinful or had a sinful nature. Jesus looked like any human being, but he is not like any human being because he is a divine person, and so he is free from sin as well as from a sinful nature. Is this one the correct? Is this one the apologist? Jesus was fully God and fully human. As the incarnate Son of God, he was without sin and did not possess a sinful nature. This is based on passages such as Hebrews 4:15, which states that Jesus was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. This belief is also supported by other passages such as 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and 1 Peter chapter 2.
I like that they went for the same verse, because I thought, oh, that looks like the human thing to do. That's the verse I would have gone for. And then the robot did it too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess that A is real and B is machine.
And do you want to give us any reason why?
Yeah, A goes into some of the nuances of the Greek, and it looks like it's looking at translation issues, and it's just got a real sensitivity to really diving deeper into it in a way that looks like the work of some of the Catholic Answers apologists.
Very good. It was Trent Horn. Oh, I didn't let you guess. Sorry. Go ahead. Guess.
I was going to get it wrong. I wasn't. I was ambivalent on purpose as to which apologist, because it was a very good answer. I think he did a great job with that question.
All right. I'm just going to read one paragraph out of each of these answers. The question is, again, these are short questions that are given in the back of the magazine with short answers from the apologists. What is the soul? Answer A. The soul isn't a thing like a material object or even a ghostly specter. Instead, it is that which organizes matter so that it is alive and not dead. It is the form of living matter. Since living and non-living things are composed of roughly the same elements, the difference between them cannot be purely physical. Instead, the difference between living and non-living matter is found in the presence of the soul, which St. Thomas Aquinas called the first principle of life. Is that an apologist or an AI? Or is this one, okay, you know what I'm saying. The soul is the spiritual and immaterial aspect of a human being distinct from the physical body. The soul is considered to be the spiritual principle of life, and it is the source of the person's consciousness, intelligence, emotions, and will.
I'm going to say A is human again, and I was going to guess Carlo if I had to guess which human.
Trent, but human. You were correct.
The
first one.
Trent is a human.
But did you have any problems with the second answer? It seemed like that the AI got it right.
Oh, the phrase that made me think it was AI was considered to be.
Oh, yes, that's right. Right, yeah.
It did that very careful, I don't want to offend you, but some people would say the soul is the immaterial principle of life.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, we don't really use the passive voice very much in our answer. We just say...
Right. We're
Here's
just
the answer.
This is the right answer. I don't care what you would have said. You're reading this magazine to find a Catholic answer.
All right. Well, now here's the big twist ending to our show. Joe Heschmeyer wasn't really on this show. That was an AI the whole time. That wasn't Joe Heschmeyer. As a matter of fact, he is out with his wife and children right now He's actually way nicer to his wife than this AI Joe. Not really. I'm just kidding. Joe, thanks for doing this with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that.
You know, it doesn't sound sincere at all. You could tell it's human because it's not sincere. The AI would be sincere.
Yeah, that's the artificial stands for sincere.
All right, and AI, I want to thank you for participating. Beep, bop, boop, beep. Oh, that's the AI saying, "You're welcome." That's how they do that. Seriously, Joe. See you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.